Right now, he is live on Facebook for the Not Your Average Investor Show Tuesday edition. We are kicking off season 2, or maybe putting the bow on season 1. We have not yet decided, but I am your host, Pablo Gonzalez. My co-host, as always, the guy they call GC, because if he's your friend, he's genuinely cheering for you all the time. And because his name is Greg Cohen. Say hello, Greg.
Hello, everybody. Good to be with you today.
And today we have somebody that just one-upped me right before we went live, and that's okay because I respect his game.
Can I do it again?
He is the quintessential Not Your Average Investor. He's a tech star, once named California's Horse Racing Rookie of the Year, has won the equivalent of Best in Show at the biggest alpaca show of the year. He's a seasoned real estate investor, a four-man champion surfer, a college volleyball player, and the pride of Maui. Say aloha to Zach Correa. Aloha, Zach.
Aloha, everybody. Peheo makaino. Hope everybody's doing well, and welcome to the show. Love to share the stage with Pablo Gonzalez, as well as Greg Cohen, the podcast genius for me, the voice of Not Your Average Investor, and Greg Cohen, GC. He's a great communicator, sharing great concepts that generate cash flow while giving back to the community, aka Pablo Sanchez and Greg Quixote. It's welcome to share that stage with them. It's a pleasure. Short time listener, first time Zoomer. I have a lot of admiration and for both Greg and Pablo in regards to their appreciation and adding to the community. So thank you for having me on the show.
Zach, it has already been a pleasure, my friend, and I'm sure it's only going to get better. As you know, we do a little bit of housekeeping when we start the show, right? Number one is to tell our friends that are here, Bill Shields, Stevie Block, Marilyn Cotterman, Lee Bishop, welcome, welcome, welcome. Anybody else that is showing up here for the first time, there's 2 ways to interact with us, and we want you to interact with us. Actually, you know what? There's 3 ways now. Thanks to a new discovery that we made at the Fan Appreciation Show last week. But we have the chat where we want you all chatting with each other, make a new friend here. Lots of collective real estate knowledge to be had. So don't be shy about putting things in the chat. The one thing you got to do there is change from the blue box that says panelists to change it to all panelists and attendees so that you're chatting with each other. Second, if you want me to ask Greg or Zach a question live on the show, pop open that Q&A box. Populate that. I ask you to do that because that chat you're going to see goes real fast. And if you definitely want me to not go cross-eyed and keep your question in mind, the Q&A does a really good job. And as of last week, we got a new thing. If you actually want to come on screen and talk to us, and we got a back and forth to go through, if you want to raise your hand and just send me a chat saying that you raised your hand on purpose, because that sometimes happens by mistake, I'll call on you. We'll bring you on if there's an elongated conversation to be had here. We're going to experiment with that. Please be patient with me. And last but not least, if you want a guide on what leads to passive income success based on over 3,000 sample sizes and how you can go about it, we have a new guide out called the JWB Passive Income Guide. And you can get that by going to jwbpassiveguide.com. So if you're interested in that, check it out. But without further ado, Zach, I mentioned a couple of really, uncommon, not your average things that you've accomplished. Can you kind of just tell us your story of how you've gotten to here? Right, just give us the origin story.
Well, it's kind of nice that last week I got the pleasure of hearing Fan Appreciation. I got to put some chat to some faces with other investors. And, throughout the year, I'm actually short time participant and listener to this. I started like in September listening to Not Your Average Investor. I try to participate as much as I can. But I think the biggest takeaway that I get from these Not Your Average Investors, from also the presenters that you've had, as well as the investors in last week's Appreciation Day, was around the takeaways and learning lessons learned, key successes, and nuggets. And throughout my story, I'll share with you today, I'll sprinkle in some of our lessons learned, as well as some nuggets that I gained from Mr. GC. I'll call it great concepts. And one of the first great concepts I got from Mr. GC was always value the journey. There's no other teacher as the journey. And so this is the story of our journey. right? I live in Seattle, Washington, but I was born and raised on Maui, Hawaii. I got a Boeing scholarship to work for a Boeing company at the University of Washington while I was attending school at the University of Washington. Had a Boeing scholarship. And a sidebar, it's first time to what we call the mainland. So us islanders, we call the U.S. the mainland. And so when we landed, my mom says, make sure when you land at the Seattle airport, the Evergreen State, that you call me to make sure that you're safely arrived. I said, okay, Mom. I'm in the cab on my way to University of Washington to the dorms. I called my mom up and I said, hey, Mom, made it here safe, but you won't believe it. They got Christmas trees growing on the side of the freeway. I'm like, what the heck? So culture shock, island boy, city. I even got to the dorms and I met my roommate, and he introduced himself and he said he was from Bangor, Maine. So Hawaii and Bangor, Maine, completely opposite sides of the U.S. And he said, where are you from? I said, oh, Maui, Hawaii. And said, oh, so you're a foreign exchange student. I said, oh, okay. So, my career started on the mainland at UW. Met my wife at Grand Labakan in Lake Tahoe. I know Pablo knows this very well, his old stomping ground at the Squaw Valley Resort, skiing. I got married, have kids, and we both have career. We have careers in Fortune 500 companies. My wife worked for Oracle software company for many years. She actually then broke off and is now a CEO of her own consulting company that implements Oracle payroll softwares to many large organizations. Some of them include today Kaiser Permanente hospitals, Marriott International, and the United States Air Force and United States Airspace. So some large organizations that she does implementations for. And I'm a process director. I do a lot of sponsorships of project work with advanced technologies, things like artificial intelligence. So I work with Tesla and Uber on driverless vehicles. So remember that, driverless vehicles. So automated driverless assistance programs. I do virtual reality VRs. I work with Microsoft in their HoloLens and remote assist of virtual world. I work with Spatial and Oculus. We do some augmented reality work around scenario VR, WebGL, and 360 photogrammetry. So really, we both have corporate America jobs. And I remember, Greg talked about his career with Johnson & Johnson, but we look at it as from a career perspective. If you love what you do, then you do what you love, it's a career, right? If you don't love what you do, then it's just a job, right? We were at a conference, one of the real estate conferences. There was 300, 400 people there. And the presenter said, everyone that has a JOB stand up. 90% of the people stood up, right? Then everybody who still loves the JOB remained standing. And we both remained standing. And we looked around and it was like, there's like a handful of people still standing. But we have careers. We love what we do. We look at it like Paul Shivey was on your show recently. And he talked about the two tracks, right? The active and passive side. Our active side really is our career. This is where we build our capital to get ourselves to be able to do passive income. So we have corporate America jobs. But we also we were considered traditional average investors while we were, during our journey. We had your portfolios, your stocks, bonds, mutual funds, 401ks, Roth IRAs, stock options, and we purchased a permanent home and raised our family in that, and so we were your traditional average investors. Well, spring of April 2000 is when we became not your average investor. Okay. We had just got done with our taxes that year, and we're sitting with our CPA, and he said, man, we need to figure out a way to get some more tax benefits and tax advantages for you guys. What are you doing Saturday? And we said, we're free. He says, well, meet me at the Emerald Downs Thoroughbred Racetrack. And we looked at it, so I was like, what? Yes, meet me down there. And my wife, she does recreational riding, so she likes horses. So she was excited about that. And me, occasionally I'll do your fantasy leagues, and I do some ponies. So some betting with horse racing is kind of fun. So we went down there. We get there Saturday morning, and he takes us to the backside. And the backside is the backside where all the horses are when they're not racing and in the morning. And this place is like controlled chaos. the morning is when horses do all their training and exercising, and it's chaotic. It's like downtown traffic during rush hour, right? Horses everywhere. You have to be careful not to get kicked, not to be run over by the golf carts. Well, the backside is like a city within a city. It has its own cafe. It has its own general store. It has its own medical facility. It has its own chapel. I mean, it has everything back there. It's people live there in the backside. Well, we ended up being introduced. Our CPA introduced us to several different trainers and several owners. Now, a little bit we know at the time that these trainers that he introduced us to were like Hall of Fame trainers, on top of the food chain. And these owners that we were introduced to were the probably the leading owners in earnings in the Northwest. So it was the cream of the crop. So we took advantage. We didn't know at the time, but we asked questions galore. We were like the kid in the candy shop, asking all these kind of questions. We were very interested in what was going on and very inquisitive when we got there. We ended up spending up the whole day there. We had lunch there. We met with some owners, and then these owners that we met, we ended up not only becoming friends with them, but they became our mentors. You know, successful people learning the business, already made the mistakes, and for us to actually start to do some of the things from them. At the end of the day, one of the trainers came up to us and said, "Hey, Beth and Zach, the best way, if you guys are interested in coming into the horse racing business, is to buy a share in a horse. I tell you what, I will give you 50% of one of my horses for $1, for $1. And of course, not your average investors. We looked at it and said, deal, shook hands, and we now own 50% of a horse for $1 that we never saw. We never even seen the horse. Ironically, the horse's name was Laughing and a Drinking. Laughing and a Drinking was our first horse. You know, it personified our lifestyle. It was us. I mean, we love socializing, we love, interacting, laugh, like going to parties, you know. Laughing and Drinking was a perfect horse. We never did ever see the horse, by the way. We left that day, and we started to do our homework. We started to figure out, what do we need to do next in order for us to start to implement this new business venture. And one of the things that we learned immediately was that you cannot treat this like a hobby. It has to be treated like a business, right? Very similar to real estate. So we went ahead and started to create our business. We created our business name, our business plan. We put our plan together. We created different accounts. We created an LLC. Everything that you would do in the real estate business is the same thing we did initially, way back when in 2000, relative to the horses. One of the things that we had to do, we understood that as well, is we had to hire, we had mentors. So we had our owners, we hired a trainer, Hall of Fame trainer, and we also had to hire, and the trainers are kind of like your portfolio managers for your rentals, right? And then we have to hire like a bloodstock agent to find us horses. It's no different than your real estate agent. It's the same concept, right? So we hired a bloodstock agent, and we immediately went into a mode of preparing our business. And then once we got that done, we started to look for horses. And my wife, when we were ready to do this, she looked at me, she says, "You know what, honey, go find me a 3-year-old gray filly that can run." And I looked at her and said, "Honey, this is not like going to the Mercedes dealership and say, I want a GL 450 royal blue with heated seats and a sunroof." It's not like a dealership, right? So we still laugh about that today, but we moved forward with this, and we did our homework. And what they have, the horses, they have what they call catalog pages, and they have PPs, what they call past performances on the different performances of all the horses in their family. And we use that just like the MLS and just like the property evaluator that the JWD does. They have all these indexes instead of HBI. They have, you know, what type of distances the horse can run, what kind of surfaces they run on, et cetera. It's very similar in regards to the evaluators that we look for buying houses, but it's just horses now, right? So on paper, long distance, one thing that I learned is that similar to the real estate market, they have markets in the horse racing business where they have certain areas in the country that have higher return on investment for horses, better stock, better pedigree, and higher earnings for races. And of course, that's where your higher end trainers are, your more professional, higher successful trainers are. And we determined that California, Kentucky, Florida, and New York were probably the markets that had the higher return on investment for horses. So the closest place that we thought of was California. So we started to search California, And we did our due diligence, and we found a horse on paper that looked great. It's pedigree, it's confirmation, it's past performance. And we called the trainer down there that happened to be a Hall of Fame trainer, one of the leading trainers down there, and made an offer, put in a bid. No different than us making an offer on a real estate house, right? And we got our bid accepted, right? So we bought our first horse for $12,500. That was our first horse. And ironically, this horse was a 3-year-old gray filly, but we didn't know if it could run yet because it hadn't raced yet, right? So it was 2 out of the 3 things that my wife requested that she wanted as part of her business plan. And it's funny about the business plan. One of the things that we put at the bottom of our business plan is, this is a business. Please do not fall in love with the horses. This is a business. You have to run it like a business, not like a hobby. But anyway, so this filly ended up winning her first race and ended up making over $100,000 the first year. So much so that we were awarded the California Rookie Owner Breeders of the Year for that year because of that. And we were like, wow, we were ecstatic, right? Success, profit. The positives was the profit. The negatives was the fact that we won so quickly. And we thought this was the way it is. We thought it was that easy, right? Wrong, right? Like anything else, the horse business is really cyclical, and it's really more down than it is up. It's not like passive income where there's a lot of consistency in your rentals. There's no consistency in horses. It's horses. They break down. They get hurt. They don't want to run anymore. They have personalities, right? So they have a lot of different things that are against us in regards to that. But the reality is our strategy of getting into the horse business was 2 things. One was around the tax benefits. Similar to houses, they have depreciations you can deduct, that you can deduct all of the maintenance, the training fees, all of the same things that we would do for real estate is the same things we have the benefits for race horses, right? So if you can do real estate, you can do racehorses. If you can do racehorses, you can do real estate. Same thing. The other benefits were we were having fun. We met a lot of people, just like we are in the real estate business. A lot of people that became friends going to horse races, and nothing's better than winning a race, by the way, right? So we did that. We even in 2005 had the opportunity to go to the Kentucky Derby, kind of the pinnacle for all owners, right? And the way the Kentucky Derby works is it's only 3-year-olds that are eligible, and you have to have the earnings in order to qualify. So earnings means the dollars earned that year. And we happened to be, and on the racetrack, the width of the track, you can only fit 20 horses total because of the width of the track. So the top 20 horses gets to run in the Derby, and every year there's always 20 horses. Well, guess what? We were number 21. We were the 21st horse. We needed to have another horse either scratch, get sick, or whatever. We don't wish ill wishes on other horses, but that would be the way. We were there. We were at the Derby. We had the horse ready. Unfortunately, no horse scratched, and we didn't able to run. The cool thing about that was our trainer was a Hall of Fame trainer who recently won 2 back-to-back triple crowns, Bob Baffert. We also had one of our partners on that horse was Bodie Miller. He's the Olympic gold medalist, right?
Yeah.
We were surrounding ourselves with successful people, so we knew we were on the right path of the business, and we were having fun, right? Networking. Fast forward now to 2013.
Zach, if I can pause you for a second.
Oh yeah, sure.
You've been making all these analogies to real estate, but at this point, you hadn't yet invested in real estate, right?
No, I'm just trying to engage the audience to say, hey, this is kind of how it looks like. These are lessons learned that I didn't know before, but it helped me accelerate our success in the real estate business. And I'll share that how that accelerated. But that makes sense, right? That's a good point, Pablo. I thought that when I talked to you about this earlier, it made sense for me to tie my story back to my lessons learned, kind of back and forth, because it made sense about how we took what we learned in life, in our journey. It's like Greg says, always value the journey. There's no other teacher as the journey, right? And our journey is teaching us what we're going to learn future state. And we didn't know it at the time, but now we can apply what we learned, right? So
I think
it's very cool.
Really interesting. When you just started that, Zach, and I can't wait to hear the rest of this, but when you started that, you said, I was talking to my CPA, he said we needed some tax deductions. He said, come here and meet me on this Saturday. I would have bet $1 to everything I have that you were going to go to a real estate conference on
Exactly.
that Saturday to learn about the amazing tax deductions. I never would have guessed your CPA was taking you to the what is it called? The back city, the backside,
The backside. It's
the
the
backside, to learn how to invest in some ponies over there. So.
And I don't know if you've ever seen thoroughbreds, but Florida is really big. And I mean, they have Gulfstream there. They have some very nice racetracks and horses there, very high end, all multi-million-dollar horses in Florida. And so that's a great place to be looked at.
I haven't seen it much, but I've been dying to go to the Kentucky Derby, and I think that you were there. And
if I make it there, this group is coming with me. So
yeah, well, hey, I know who to call.
Yeah. So getting back to my story here. So 2013, we're looking to one of the lessons we learned was that, like we do in real estate, we learned that the return on investment, the highest return on investment is literally around fillies because they have two foals. It's a racing prospect and then a broodmare prospect. So there it has some opportunities for breeding purposes, right? And so we always looked at fillies. So we had on paper, we were going to a sale and we were looking at this filly, and on paper, man, it was like, we were like, we can't afford this filly. It was perfect. It was like a JWB property. I'm kidding. Right? But anyway, we went to this filly and we went to the sale on paper. It's ready to probably spend our budget, right? We always have a budget. We go there, and if we don't buy the filly or the horse, we walk away, right? That's the power of negotiations with capital, right? You have the power to walk away, and that's a win, actually. So we go there and we go to the horse and we see this horse. And my analogy is if you think about it like a distressed property, when you went to a house and you went to a real estate property and it was a distressed property, this filly, her coat was so dull. She had parked herself in the corner of her stall with her butt towards the door, head hung low. And every time you went in there, she would bite you. She was a mean filly, right? But as we say in the real estate business, she had good bones.
Yeah,
right. She had good bones. It's like
I see where you're going with this.
I can rehab this filly, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we went ahead and bought it because of the fact that she had all of these personality constraints. We name all our horses Hawaiian names just because we have a unique branding, and we named her Madame Pele. She's the goddess of fire and the volcano. At any time she can erupt. Right. This filly. So we named her Madame Pele. So we bought her for $14,000, and she ended up winning multiple stakes races, 3 championships, 2 horse of the years in her categories. She earned over $250,000. We sold her at the Kentucky sale for $100,000, and her first foal, sold for $295,000. Our original investment was $14,000, and nobody wanted to buy her. Right? Wow. The distressed property that it was a windfall. Well, we capitalized. We were celebrating, and we this was a win, of course. And you celebrate your wins. And we did what we thought every not your investor would do. Not your average investor would do. And we went ahead and we invested some of the profits in an alpaca farm. That's what we did. We went to a state fair that year, and they had a showcase of alpacas, and my wife fell in love with these alpacas. She just loved animals, but she fell in love with these alpacas. If you don't know what an alpaca is, it's part of the camelid family, and it's kind of like a kindler, gentler llama, if you know what that is, right? And their fleece, by the way, is beautiful. They rival cashmere. They're actually as soft as cashmere. They're 6 times warmer than wool, and they're non-hyperallergenic. So they're high fashion, right? And so the alpaca business, really, there's 2 sets of the business. There's the fashion side where you make clothing, and then you have the breeding side, right? And on the fashion side, we would shear animals and we would send them out to make products. We would make things like sweaters and overcoats and jackets and shawls and scarves and beautiful gloves and hats. And we would go to these markets on the weekend. We would set up a booth. They give us 6x8 booth, and we would go to these festivals like the chocolate and wine festival. We would go to Oktoberfest, and we had 6x8 booth. The biggest winners was around the Christmas festivals. We had the Victorian Christmas, etc. But we would go there for 2-3 days, and we'd set up a booth. And believe it or not, the people loved our product. We were at a point earnings cash flow in sales every day, on average of 10 to 12,000 a day.
Oh
So
my.
in a 3-day weekend, we're making $30,000 to $40,000 on this little 6x8 booth of our products.
Wow.
It was crazy, right? But it wasn't passive. It was active. We had to
Right.
work. We had to stay at the booth. We had to haul. I had to break down and tear down everything, and we had to take care of the animals. The other side of the business was the alpacas. The not so average investors was still a market for them to come into the business. They wanted to purchase animals. But at that point, when we first started, we didn't have as many animals, but we're considered small breeders. We had to build our herd for us to really be able to sell it. So about 3 years later, we were able to get our herd about maybe 20 to 25 alpacas. So we're ready to go. And our third year, that was our pedigree, our animals, and we were able to be qualified for nationals. Our third year in the business, which is very quick, by the way. So we were able to go to nationals. We took 6 alpacas to nationals, and each one of our alpacas either won a championship or won a reserve championship in the categories. And we were awarded the Alpaca Small Breeder of the Year award that year. And the next thing you know, people are coming to our stalls and saying, hey, we want to purchase this animal. We want to purchase this animal. And my wife and I, Beth and I, looked at each other and said, exit strategy, right? We need to get out of this. This was all active. It was just too much work for us, right? And we never hired anybody. We did it all ourselves. Plus, we had our careers going on, and we were raising children at the time.
Wow.
And so we went ahead, and in 2 to 3 months we sold our entire herd, right? And we sold them with, on average, most of them sold for 5 digits. We had 2 of them sold for 6 digits. We saw an alpaca sell for $600,000 at a sale once. It's a crazy number, right? Wow. You never think about that. How many houses could I buy with that? Rental houses I could buy with that. But it's one alpaca. But anyway, our next step was then we needed to sell the farm. The good news about the farm was that we actually had horses, thoroughbreds we had there. So we really built the farm like a ranch, a horse ranch. We had 9-stall barn, we had a paddock, we had shelters, we had automatic waterers and heaters. So it was set up for turnkey for horses. And so one of the things that I think we looked back and said, we did right was we hired a real estate agent that was specializing in multi-million-dollar ranches. That was her specialty, right? She knew the niches, she knew the demographics, she knew the different realtors. So we put our house together. She took photos, and the week before it went on MLS for public, she invited all these agents that were specialists. And luckily, that same day, we got a call from my agent saying, we have an agent that has a buyer that wants to pay cash for your house, for your farm, your ranch. And she also would like to offer cash for all the furnishers and all your farm equipment, your tractor, your brush hog, your riding mower, everything. And I was so worried about what am I going to do with this, right? And someone walks in, swoops in, and says she offered everything and offered cash. And I went to get appraisals, and we said yes. We literally turned around and sold a turnkey ranch property for cash. We found out later that she was she just got hired at Microsoft. She lives in San Francisco as a Microsoft executive, and she had 6 Arabian horses that she needed to install. Before we even left, she rented out 6 of our stalls, paid us the rent for the stalls, and hired somebody to take care of them before we even left. So wow. We packed up our personal belongings, and we were homeless in Seattle. Right? We were homeless in Seattle immediately, but we were happy, right? We sold the ranch, sold the package, we were done. Business done. Exit strategy. Well, the good news is that in 2012, we were able to buy a vacation home. We were snowbirders. So we went in Phoenix. So we had a house in Phoenix. So we stayed there for a few months while we built our custom home in Washington to go back to Washington for primary residence. Well, 2018, fast forward, we had another profitable year in horses, right? We continue with that. 2019, we're snowbirding in Phoenix, and we heard on the radio, Dan Merrill, Fortune Builders, real estate investment seminar, come join us, right? And we're like, man, that could be our next business venture, right? And so that's when we first were introduced to the real estate investing. So before I go on, any questions or any comments on that? That's kind of our story till we get to the investment piece.
So I've been trying just to step into Zach's life like over the last 20 years. And and I'm thinking about it from like an investment perspective. So you're somebody who is so accomplished and you're doing all of these things that are unique that I'm sure you don't have any friends that are, doing both, becoming a champion in horse racing and also becoming a champion in alpaca farms, right? And I can imagine, just knowing you as long as I have, that you're not somebody who just does things willy-nilly, right? It's not like you just happen to jump into alpaca farms and you were this successful, right?
Right.
I'm assuming there's a really common thread between what you saw with horse racing and alpaca farms. And then I'm assuming you'll make that same kind of connection with JWB and the investments, but kind of like, what gave you the confidence to do some of these things that were totally unique? You probably didn't have anybody in your social circle who was doing the same, or maybe you did. I don't know. Maybe you had a mentor who was doing it. But what gave you the confidence to know that this had a high degree of probability of success for you?
So whenever we do business ventures, that's a great question. Some of the keys to success that I like to share, we have what we call guiding principles that we go by, right? And I know corporate America, we have guiding principles for that, but we have our personal guiding principles. We have 3 guiding principles that we follow regardless of what it is, whatever venture we do, whether it's personal or business. These are the guiding principles that we follow. The first one, Greg, is core values, right? Through the years, it's become more and more important to us to identify the core values that guide everything we do, both personal and business. Our core values really defines our culture, our beliefs, and our lifestyle, and it goes to our reputation. It is our goal to consistently live these core values in our lives on a daily basis, and we hold each other accountable to these values. In fact, majority of our friends and even business associates like yourself share similar values than we do. I know JWB has 12 core values, from a business.
Well, we have 10, but we'll take 2 of yours.
We have 10. Yeah, we have 10, and I'll share some of them with you guys. Just a handful here. One of them is have courage, right? One of the great concepts from GC that I've learned is encourage failure, empower people to fall forward, right? Perfection is not our goal. We don't be afraid to fail, because sometimes you have to do things afraid, right? That's a core value. Another core value is be compassionate and generous, right? Another lesson learned from GC, leading with compassion is the most effective way to lead. We believe that doing things with, quote, all heart can change the world, right? Now, excellence, be great, never settle. Diversity and inclusion, practicing mutual respect for qualities and experiences that are different from our own. Alpacas is different, horses is different. We did the stocks, bonds, and mutual funds and all of those things, right? And then, of course, one that I think everyone should have on their core values is always have fun, laughing and drinking, right? Yeah. So that's the first guiding principles that we follow. Another one that we do is it's around something that I learned and I incorporate in my business world is from Colin Powell. If you guys know Colin Powell, he's a former U.S. Secretary of the State, retired 4-star general. He writes many books about his journeys, right? And one of them is called In Life and Leadership, 13 Rules, right? And I call these guiding principles financial rules of engagement. These are things that we follow to make sure that we do before we even go into any venture. We follow these first, right? And there's 4 rules. First rule is pay yourself first, right? Don't forget to live life to the fullest. You have to work hard to build your wealth. Occasionally treat yourself. Take a break from those top ramen and treat yourself to a nice dinner, right? Take a family vacation, buy a new toy. But that's it. It is still very important. And I've heard you say this many times, Greg. It's very important to establish an emergency fund for the unexpected. 3 to 6 months. We usually do 6 months, right? Our second rules of engagement for financial is pay off your bad debt. I know these are probably simple, but we follow these to the T. They're good and bad debt. Pay off all your bad debt. You don't need this. It really is an obstacle to your success, right? Number 3, create a budget and stick to it. So simple, but it's often overlooked. And the last rule, financial rules of engagement for us, is about whatever is left over, invest.
Mhm.
right? And it's a cool thing. One of the things that I learned from the Microsoft collaboration with the HoloLens and remote is their senior leaders, Bill Gates has adopted this as part of Microsoft's leadership development series around mindset. They collaborated with a psychologist named Carol Dweck. It's
Mhm.
mindset. It's the difference between fixed mindset versus growth mindset, right? And uh, and Bill Gates looks at it as growth mindset as it illuminates how our beliefs about our capabilities exert tremendous influence on how we learn and what path we take in life. And translating this for me as I transition into the real estate investment, translating this into real estate investing is shifting from really the net worth mindset, which I say is fixed, to a cash flow mindset, which is
Mhm.
growth, right? It's shifting from the mindset of why should I pay someone else 12 to 15% when I have my own money,
Mhm.
to a growth mindset of it's not the cost of the capital that matters, but rather the availability of the capital when I need it, right? That's a difference. That's the growth mindset. We use the 30% rule when investing, 30% of our money, 70% of other people's money, right?
Mhm.
That's our philosophy. So that's
Mhm.
that's the financial rules of engagement. And then the last guiding principles that we follow, Greg, is around finding your why, right? Simon Sinek, right? Discovering your purpose and understanding exactly why we do what we do is so important, right?
Mhm.
And there's like three things, and probably it's on everybody's list: legacy, family first, right? Financial freedom, do what you want to do whenever you want to do it. And then charity, giving back to the community.
Mhm.
Those are our guiding principles that establish ourselves no matter what business venture we are. And, when you talk about whys, there's also how, actions and things you do on the why is to life. And we always take the unconventional perspective, for the alpacas, horses, we keep it simple. We share everything. We focus on the long term. I mean, that's our hows on getting to the whys. So hopefully that answered your question a long way, but hopefully that helped answer your question.
Helped me a tremendous amount, Zach. It is really great, I think, for people to be hearing your thoughts on this and how important it is for these things to be not only just thought about, discussed, written down, lived out, held accountable to with your partner, especially as we're going into 2021. I know I'm going to listen again to this episode afterwards, and I'm going to think about the things that you just did there and see what I can incorporate in my own goal setting, in my own core values within my family, beyond just JWB. So I think that is really, really impactful. And thank you for sharing. And then for anybody who hasn't listened yet to the Simon Sinek talk about discovering the why, you should do that. Just Google it. It is an incredible session that Simon does. Very, very impactful. So thank you, thank you, thank you. That is really incredible, man.
Yeah. So as we apply to these different business ventures, we always keep those principles in mind. We always reassess. It's always good to assess and reassess. You should, because things change in your journey,
I had a
right?
question for you. So, as you were doing some of these unique investments, I have no idea about the lending environment for horse racing or alpaca farming, and you're using 30% of your own money, 70% of other people's money. Were you still able to accomplish that with some of these
Yeah.
less
Yeah.
traditional investments?
Yeah, it's so funny in the horse business. They have syndications just like they do for real estate. Where you actually have a property management company that does finds the horses, takes care of the horses, sends you videos. I mean, literally, we buy horses sight unseen,
Yeah,
just like we do houses.
that's
So
excellent.
yeah, it's a lot of times where you can still enjoy and have the benefits of the benefits of tax write off, but with the obviously. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that's integrated into our passive income strategy as we get into that. So before we even started our passive income strategy, one of the things that we always life lessons is that my wife and I, both Beth and I, we work in project management. There's a difference between in businesses of running the business, RTB, and project work, right? We do project work, not run the business, right? So that's why I think we love it and we have careers, because it's always different every day, right? It's not the same. We're not putting the same widget together every day. We're doing something different, and it's exciting. Future state. So we treat every business venture like we do with this investment strategy, like a project, right? We establish what the objective is. We determine why the urgency, why are we doing this, right? The why, we talked about the cynic. What's in scope and what's out of scope? You know, what are we going to include here? Are we doing active and passive? Are we quitting our job? What are we doing, right? What's in scope, out of scope? What's the success criteria? That's so important. People miss that a lot, is determining what is your success criteria. I know JWB has a great success criteria. And then what are some constraints? What are things that could be preventative of you getting to your objective? And what are some of the risks? You know, you don't have funds, or it's not the good timing right now, the economy, pandemic, whatever the risks are. You need to identify that, and you really should have roles and responsibilities. The thing that's been so successful for Beth and I is we don't do the same thing. You know, in our business, you know, I'm the one that does all the R&D and the pedigree and the performance reviews and finds the evaluators. She does the financials, right? She does all the taxes. You have to have some roles and responsibilities, but at the end of the day, you and your partner should always make the decision, right? Mm-hmm. Together, right? So we incorporate a project management mentality. So as we created I'll get into now our passive income investment strategy, it's 5 phases, right? But before we can even deploy our 5 phases, we needed to create a strategy or mission statement, right? And if you're in corporate America, one of the things that I've learned is that your strategy statements needs to be smart when you're goal setting. And I'm sure Greg knows about this, and a lot of you do. It's smart, right? Specific, it needs to be measurable, it needs to be achievable, relevant, and time bound. If it's not a solid statement, right? It's not smart. It's not smart in your goal setting. So we established a strategy statement, and then we start to deploy our phases, right? We have 5 phases, as I mentioned. Our first phase, I call it the immersion program. It's accelerating our education and upskilling. The lesson learned in this phase for us in our short period of time. So remember, we started in March of 2019, March of last year, right? So we've been in it for about a year and a half, right? The lesson learned so far in the immersion program is what we learned from Warren Buffett, one of our informal mentors, right? The best investment you can make is an investment in yourself. The more you learn, the more you earn, right? Mm-hmm. And so what we did was when we joined the Fortune Builders in March of 2019, we started to attend all these boot camps on the weekends, right? Wholesaling, rehabbing, marketing, rental, commercial, office systems, money, asset protection, negotiation. We didn't need to become experts at it, but we needed to understand the business, right? We completed all the webinars online. I mean, I remember getting up at 3 a.m. because I know I had to work the entire day just to do these webinars, these podcasts, you know, because it was worth it. It's a short opportunity to invest in yourself. And so we did all the courses, passive income, rental, commercial investments. We even, you know, integrated JWB learning centers, bigger pockets, all of the webinars, RIAs, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all the books. So now we call it the immersion program. That's phase 1. Phase 2, we call ready, set, go. Building your business, right? It's 4 steps. The lesson learned in phase 2 is knowing is not enough. You need to apply. Willing is not enough. You need to do, right? So we needed to do this. We need to apply what we learned. And we had 4 steps. Our first step was around creating a business plan, right? We did that for the horses. We did that for the alpacas, strategy, mission, core values, budgets, etc. Our second one was the same thing we did with the horses and alpacas as well, is we identified and built what we call our advisory team, right? It's finding the right team. And Greg has said this in his past sessions before, find the right team of experts, right? And the way we do it is based on reputation, credibility, and most important, compatibility. Because we've met people in the real estate business and in other businesses where they have the expertise and credibility, but I can't get along with them, right? They don't meet the same core values. They cannot, I mean, I get along with Greg and Pablo immediately, right? But there's some people out there that you just don't click, and it's okay. Right. Move on. But don't settle. Remember, right. That's one of our core values. Don't settle. Be great, right? And one of the things that I've learned from Mr. GC, you know, great concepts, another great concept from GC, it's not about you. Great leaders bury their ego, right? What I mean by that is our tagline for all our business is success breeds success, right? Successful people surround themselves with successful people. Successful leaders don't have to be experts at everything. They just need to know where to find the experts when they need to, right? And that's our goal. But in order for you to find the experts, you need to have the knowledge of what the heck you're looking for, right? And in phase one. And we have an acronym that we use. It's called CASE, K-A-S-E, CASE. Copy and steal everything, right? Leverage other people's successes, their systems, their expertise to accelerate your success. How do you think how quickly we got successful in the horse business, alpaca business, and now the real estate business? Is we learn from other investors' mistakes, right? Fortune builders, being part of the master program, and JWB, they're teaching you the things that they know is successful. They have formulas, they have systems, they're experts. Why would I go and spend 10 years of learning what they already know? Share with me, right? Case, copy and steal everything.
And I did the same thing early on. Fortune builders, before Fortune builders was even Fortune builders, I was doing your case, copy and steal everything from Fan and Paul over there, right? They still make fun of me about it, right? But I think it's so simple. It's but
if they're willing to share, right? Don't copyright or don't, man, that's obviously,
But a lot of people are unwilling to either spend that money or spend that time. Usually you got to pay somebody to be able to copy and steal their stuff ethically, right? They're going to sell it, right? If they have done a good job and they've built a successful career, right? You're going to pay them. But so many people they lack the humility to go into a situation, or they're so afraid of failing that they're unwilling to say, hey, I'm going to go spend $10,000 here or $20,000 here to go and learn from somebody who knows so much more than me because they've been doing it for 20 years. Right. But, you're somebody who says, listen, I know that I'm going to put the work in. I've got this set process. It's one of my 5 steps. So I'm going to spend that money somewhere because I'm going to make it back 100 times over.
Yeah. And so when we're looking at building our team, our advisory team, we have 3 tiers. We have 3 tiers when we build our advisory team. One is must-have, next is critical execution, and third is discretionary, right? And our must-have, like we talked about this, is in my must-have, when I was growing up, I played in all 3 sports, baseball, basketball, football. And our freshman year in high school, we won Triple Crown championship. And I was the captain of 2 of those teams. And so we did well. And in college, you had advisors for all your classes, right? And in business, you have business mentors and coaches. Must have for us is having coaches and mentors. And, I met Greg last year as we mentioned, at the Fortune Builders Ignite conference. And thank you, Greg, for asking me to participate in your presentation. I had a lot of that was a lot of branding for me because of the fact that I associated myself with. Yeah, I know Greg. Yeah, but at the conference, we had the keynote speaker was Magic Johnson, if you remember, right?
I do.
And one of the things I took away from Magic Johnson was he had one of the successes. Key to his success was he had 6 or 7 mentors and coaches after playing basketball. Right? Help support and accelerate his success. And this guy is successful. He has so many business ventures that's been successful because he had these coaches and mentors. And we feel that's always important. I started with the horses. I started with alpacas. For you to surround yourself with successful people, and those are people that are willing to share their failures as well as their successes. And having coaches and mentors is a must-have for us as part of our advisory team. Next is critical execution. I think that's where everybody else has, your real estate CPA, your attorney, your financial advisor, custodian for a self-directed 401k, your insurance agents, your property management company like JWB. Those are all critical execution advisors. And then I call it the discretionary, real estate agent, maybe real estate broker. It's depending on your investment strategy. Your advisor team may look different. Like if you're in the active side, maybe the agent and broker becomes more imperative. But for us, it's the critical execution and must have. So we created that as our step 2. Our step 3 in that process is around developing the highest and best use of capital. Remember, I talked about the growth mindset. It's not the cost of capital that matters, but rather the availability of the capital when you need it. Well, we didn't have available capital to get into the real estate investment business right away. So we networked and searched using our advisors for financial institutions to partner with. We identified who they were. We interviewed them using our targeted selection that we do with corporate, and we selected our financial institutions to partner with. And we identified financial institutions for conventional, non-recourse, portfolio, self-directed 401k, HELOC, and we even did commercial syndications. So we had all our preliminary work done for us to be able to implement our purchasing of our properties, having the availability of capital when we need it, right? You don't, it's the time to get that. And then the second piece of that was liquidating our capital. We converted our 401k to our self-directed. We liquidated our stock portfolio. We stopped in our stock options, and we actually sold 4 of our very nice horses, right? Building capital. We knew that was active. Our active will support our passive, right? Mm-hmm. You have to have courage, you have to embrace failure, right? And then the fourth piece is, identify what market you're going to go to. I talked about that with the horses. I talked that with the alpacas, and now we do this with the real estate. Our phase 3 is what we call implementation. I think this is where a lot of the listeners maybe want to get into. We talked about the implementation. This is when we get into the generation wealth building, the 3 tactical priorities that we use. And I want to, one of the lessons learned is from, I know one of your competitors, Greg, but Kent Clothier, and I think Paul Shivey, I got this from him. Inspect what we expect, mm-hmm. right? And the different perspective of this is, when should you inspect your parachute, before or after you jump? Right? Right? You have to I hear you say this all the time, do your due diligence, right? Yeah. And so our 3 tactical priorities, first tactical priority was regard turnkey rentals, right? Your turnkey properties, single family residence. Our first step in the single family resident, we learned that we needed to leverage our Fannie Mae rules of 10 conventional loans per person. Mm-hmm. And because we bought our primary home and our secondary home, we bought it in both our names because we were at that time fixed mindset. We put it in both our names. We didn't realize the consequences of doing that at the time. Mm-hmm. But obviously there's a way out of it, refinancing, putting in and freeing up 2 billets. But so basically we had 16 billets is what I'll call it, right? Of conventional loans that we could do. We immediately took all our capital and started to leverage our conventional loans and started to buy JWB properties, right? Mm-hmm. Immediately. And Greg knows this, that's what we did. And so we did that. We wanted to leverage the Fannie Mae conventional loans because we are allowed behind the 8 ball. Our journey is always to the end. We needed to leverage this, right? We may not have a full market cycle, but we will. And then our second thing is then, and the cool thing about this, Greg, is we actually are closing on 2 of your properties tomorrow.
No way.
Yeah.
Is that going to be numbers 22?
Yep. 22. Yep. Wow. 22 for you guys. Now we close tomorrow on, they're both of the Hare Avenue single family residence. I think they're either 1230 or 1229 models.
Up there
it took us a while to close on those 2, but we're closing on those. So we have fulfilled now the leverage of Fannie Mae rules. Our second leverage is self-directed 401k using non-recourse, right? So we segregated our 401ks, we put it in self-directed, we got that managed by custodians, and we purchased non-recourse, right? And so we've applied that. Our portfolio is very similar to JWB in regards to 70% is new construction and 30% is rehab properties. Mm-hmm. We wanted to diversify that a little bit. We love new constructions, by the way, low maintenance. We know that's going to be long-term, but not a lot of turnkey companies out there that we investigated that has the opportunity to buy new constructions with the market and 5 pillars of profits that Jacksonville has with JWB. So we did that. So that's the tactical priority 1. Tactical priority 2 is we wanted to get into diversification, and we did commercial. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to, so we partnered with Fortune Builders as equity through capital syndication. Mm-hmm. And as accredited investors, we were able to get some partner ownership in several apartment buildings because we believe that not everybody can rent or buy a house. So we looked and said apartment buildings, right? So we looked at, so we invested in several apartment buildings, and we even invested in some real retail shopping centers, 8,000 square foot And we just closed one apartment in December. So that's our second tactical priority. Our last tactical priority around this was around private money lending, right? And I know Jacksonville does this as well. I mean, JWB does this as well in Jacksonville. We took a little bit different approach. We decided that we needed some asset protection on our primary and secondary home, so we used HELOCs, right? So because we were in the Seattle and Phoenix market, which has probably one of the top 5 highest appreciation markets, right? Which is why we don't buy rental properties here. But our equity, when we were fixed mindset and we bought these homes, we were in the mindset of just paying down your mortgage, right? In the meantime, the appreciation was going up. So we have a lot of equity in primary, secondary home, but it's just sitting there. It's not working for us, right? So we went ahead and did HELOCs. I mean, the things that we did different than most, I think, is instead of using your big name companies, financial institutions like Bank of America or US Bank, we decided to go local, and we actually interviewed and identified and selected credit unions, local credit unions. The reason for that was not only because they're local, but they were able to give us some very big introduction offers. In fact, in Seattle, when we did our primary home, they gave us a 3% introduction offer for a year on a 10-year HELOC on equity. That's unheard of. Usually it's like 5 or 6%, right? And now, of course, after 1 year, it's 1 or 2% prime plus or minus. But the cool thing about this is while we were attending these boot camps and fortune builders, we met a lot of people, investors that were on the active side that needed private money lenders, right? And so we engaged and we became friends and business associates, and we found several different private money lenders across the country that offered us 14% annual rate. 14%. Normally, it's 9, 10, 12% maybe.
Something
If
like
lucky.
that. JWB.
14%. So imagine 3% on your intro for your credit union on your equity, and you're getting 14%. It's 11% cash flow on all my PMLs, right?
Exactly.
Cash flow is king. Cash flow is king. Of course, I know JWB. It's not always king, right? That's not the one all be all.
No.
So we did that. We did that, and part of the HELOC with the primary and secondary HELOCs, it also causes a secondary benefit of asset protection, right? Because now the capital that's sitting in your home equity that was doing nothing for you, now is when anybody looks at that, it's you have a primary and secondary mortgage on it. It's an asset protection opportunity, which leads me to phase 4. And I'm hoping I still have time, Greg. I know you guys have a lot of questions, probably.
I've got a few that I'm saving up for you, but
so phase 4, we'll go quickly to the last 2. Phase 4, asset protection. Nelson Rockefeller, the secret to success is to own nothing, but to control everything, right? LLCs, insurance, revocable trust, real estate privacy trust. You guys got to realize, I know Greg talked about this on some of his episodes, but we have horses, and the potential of liability on horses is so great that we need to have these asset protections to protect our properties and our legacy, right? And then the phase 5, I call it toes in the sand. Toes in the sand, beer in your hand, toes in the sand, right? Fulfilling your why, right? Build a tree house for your kids. Do what you want to do. Go cliff diving at Rick's Cafe in Jamaica. Hang glide at Makapu Point in Hawaii. Surf the Bonsai Pipeline and shoot the piers in Huntington Beach. All of these things you can do now, right? And the last thing is charity. 3 H's: hunger, health, and homeless, right? Donate your time at Cosgrove, serve the homeless. Keys to Progress. Our company did similar to what JWB, Greg did. We had 45 new cars that we gave away to 45 veterans.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Incredible.
Habitat of Humanity. My son and I, we started that in the summers of when he was in high school, and we continued. We give back. In fact, that has helped me with the real estate business. I know how to hung drywall and frame and plumbing and everything on generosity. And the one things that I do recently because of COVID, and I know you and Pablo run quite a bit, is I do charity runs, virtual charity runs, and give back that way. So I'll leave you with this. My journey ends. I'll leave you with this. If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
Sorry it took so long.
That was incredible. And the whole time I'm listening to you, by the way, I'm thinking, I'm so glad that this is recorded because we need to give you this recording. You'll have this recording. We need to turn this into a book, brother. I mean,
no, not a book.
I tell you what, everything that you were going through there was so impactful from kind of a vision perspective. And then you also matched it with the tactical of this step, this step, this step. You got a book right there. You got a book career in addition to being an alpaca champion, horse racing champion, turnkey rental property investor. And then a couple other things I was going to share with you. Not a lot of people understand how you can use a home equity line of credit as a way to raise capital. And that's something that is something, especially in this environment, as many parts of the country has experienced a lot of appreciation over the past years. And at this moment now, where interest rates are literally never going to be lower, that means that your interest rates on your home equity lines of credit are never going to be lower as well, because those vary with generally with the prime rate. So it's an incredible time to use that capital to help you start to build up your assets. And so what Zach is talking about there, let's just say that, the introductory rate that he's talking about is a 3% cost of the capital. That's the 3% interest they charged him on his first year for that home equity line of credit. Now that may go up to 4% or maybe even 5%. Who knows what it adjusts to, but it's going to be really low. Let's say that he has $100,000 and he's taking that money and he's now paying in the first year $3,000 to borrow that money, right? But what's he able to make? He shared an investment. He was able to make a 14% return. If you take all of the 5 profit centers in your rental property investment, we go through this many times on the property of the week. We're able to show where you can earn over a 20% return. So it's a way that you're able to use other people's money, especially a home equity line of credit, where it's generally very easy to get access to these lines of capital. Spend $3,000 to make $14,000 or to make, over $20,000 in a year. And that is a strategy that everybody can take from here and put into use to help you start to build up those assets. There's literally never been a better time to use it right now, specifically for a home equity line of credit.
Completely agree.
Pablo, I know I've kind of stolen the show as far as questions. Let me open it up to you. I've got a couple as well, though. If
I don't need to be here, man. Like this, I'm glad I'm a fly on the wall for this car. Listen, Zach, when we had our first conversation, I was just like, dude, I can't believe I didn't record that call. And now you just showed up and spit all that same amazing knowledge in a new and unique way. And I'm glad it's recorded. Little tip for the audience. Zach, when we got on the call, was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to live up to like everything that you talked about. I'm like, all right, Zach, that's the same thing you said before you got on our first call and you blew my mind. So just to give you a little feedback, Marilyn Cotterman says, Zach needs to write an entrepreneurial business book. His experiences and knowledge is tremendous. Bill Shields says, I might listen to this once a week for the next few months. Rick Margwin says, mind blown. Miguel Angel Sanudo, great inspiration chat. Zach, thanks for sharing your experience and knowledge. You're getting rave reviews here, and Greg's not the only one that wants the book. So I just wanted to, send those praise your way. I don't need to ask questions. Greg, go, please take it away. This is incredible.
Well, and I clearly agree with everybody's sentiments there. I think for me, and I guess for most of the investors here, I'd love to understand these different times in your life when you made these different investments. What bucket did they fill for you, right? If you could kind of talk through, all right, let's start with the stocks and bonds, right? Obviously those are passive for most people. Stocks and bonds are passive, right? But maybe it wasn't accomplishing what you wanted in other ways. What did horse racing accomplish for you in terms of a risk, a return perspective, and also passive or active perspective? Then alpacas, we talked about being more active, and then turnkey rental properties and some of those. Could you kind of compare and contrast and kind of let the audience know what your lessons learned in those types of settings for those investments?
Yeah, all of them had the foundation that we wanted to stay busy, right? We knew that we could do anything if we put our mind to it. We keep our guiding principles there as well. But the horses, we love networking, right? One of the things that we learn for our whole journey is networking and meeting new people. learning from other people, but also engaging them and building relationships is very big for us. And in all of those ventures, including real estate and venture, I mean, today's call, I mean, last week's, a fan appreciation, it's all about networking and building those relationships that you can keep that will help get to your whys, right? And for us, these different unprecedented challenges sometimes is more rewarding than it is to do what the average traditional person would do, right? We had our friends that said we were crazy. We had all of those. We had all those naysayers, and no different than real estate. People thought we were getting in real estate, thought we were crazy. And the mentality is that it's about satisfaction for us. That success breeds success, right? And I think that's what we continue to believe in. That's our mantra, and we look at that as the mainstream for everything that we do.
And just kind of knowing you, it seems like a part of the definition of a successful investment for you is being able to leverage that network, that social aspect of it as well, right? That is part of your criteria, and you can find criteria that's going to accomplish this profit center or the best risk-adjusted return on investment. But for you, you're going to challenge yourself to find one that also has this ability to have this built-in networking component. And if you think about turnkey rental property investing, many people would say that that's not necessarily the most social type of investing, but for you, it is, right? That's why you and I were at that conference, a year ago, right? That's why you and I got to talking afterwards as well. And that's why you're here on the show every single week as well. And I think the other thing that I'm just taking away from this is that, success doesn't happen by accident, right? Every single venture that you just talked about there, listen, you are such a humble and fun and genuinely good dude, just in knowing you, that it it may come across like, that these good things just sort of happen to you. But I'm really glad that you talked about the amount of work that has gone into this. And you're somebody who has been incredibly successful and very high in your professional career outside of your investing career. And you're still challenging yourself to have these discussions, to write down these things that are important to you, to follow your code of conduct within your investment career, to surround yourself with your partner with the ability to call each other out and say, hey, this may not be exactly what we said. And then you're getting up at 3:00 in the morning when you've got a full day of work ahead, and you're making sure that you follow that curriculum that you had for yourself. I think that is really telling. And that's what some people may miss just in your story. It's that hard work that starts well before the success. But when you do this, then it can become repeatable. And if we just talk about your portfolio with JWB, most people would say, how on earth are you going to buy 22 properties in a year and a half? You live in Seattle, Washington, and you bought 22 properties in Jacksonville, Florida. Most people would say, I don't understand how that's even possible. But it's because you did all of these things. You did all of the due diligence. You did all of the work in the beginning. You surround yourself with the right professionals. And then boom, you can just flip the switch. And there's not fear, there's not doubt, there's not overwhelming concern. You're like, let's let it rock and roll, because now it allows me to do all of these things that I want to do to serve the community, to serve my family. So I just hope people don't miss the hard work component that, just because of the smiling guy that you are, that might not always come across, but I know it's real for you.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. The things that I've learned from JWB, and I, if you have a few minutes, I mean, one of the things I like to do is pitch JWB. Matt, as a real estate investor who has purchased several, and you mentioned, 22. We have close to now in a year and a half, we have several apartment buildings, we have several shopping centers, but we have close to about 35 now. I want to get to GC's 40, in 2 years. So, but eventually to that, we'll get to that. But for JWB as a real estate investor, if you're thinking about doing this, we purchased several turnkey properties with JWB. Our expectations are all really about performance with limited stress investments, right? One of the things that GC, great concept, again, I keep sharing all my nuggets from GC, is under promising and over delivering is the best strategy for client satisfaction. And so far, JWB have either met or exceeded our expectations. And if there's one word, Greg, that I would describe JWB, it would be trustworthy, right? Trustworthy. And I look at the term trust, right? T for tenacity, 2 and 3 year leases resulting in long-term immediate cash flow, right? R for resident retention, over 70% resident renewals, 4+ year stay, immediate resident placements, proactive resident issue resolutions, and reliable predictive return on investments. U for unique, single targeted market. I asked you this question about why are you guys not spreading out, but it makes sense. Jacksonville, that is the best, quote, best risk adjustment returns market, meets all 5 profit pillars and expect to have some of the higher potential appreciation. So great properties for future growth, especially with a full market cycle. As for superior service, your team, JWB is the gold standard by the rental property management. They set the industry standards by redefining what I call world-class concierge customer service. When you pull back the curtains, you find the wizards like Melissa and Stet and Ashley behind there, working their magic. And the last T is transparency. It starts with GC, great communication, who models, quote, transparency is the best currency. So if you're building solid turnkey rental properties, part of your passive strategy, man, you shouldn't look any further than JWB, man. They have knocked it out of the park for us. And that's why we continue to invest. I do have one question for you, Greg. So what happens if you get 20 and over? I know that you get 10 and over, you get a break on the property management fees. What's 20 and over?
That's a good question. I don't know. You're going to have to keep challenging
the airlines and the hotels, they have like, gold and silver and then platinum. And
we know what we should do? We should throw a challenge out there. You said that you wanted to get up to 40 within, for me, it was about 1.5 years, 2 years. We should keep setting that pace, that if you can go at a faster pace than we were, then, something good happens there. I'll kick it up to the higher ups here at the company.
I'm holding it up to you because this is being recorded, right, Pablo? Make sure
it's recorded.
I will say, after you got to 40, you've got a little bit of time because, we were focused on building the property management company and yada, 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 all this good stuff. So we didn't increase our holdings all that much. You probably have like a couple of years there to go above, but then it's going to get tough because then
it is tough already. But it is all good.
I could have to get up to like 380. So that might be tough.
Well, like I said, if you're still on the fence with JWB, man, I couldn't recommend any other turnkey company for a part of your passive income strategy. It is, it's been a great, like I said, my one word would be trustworthy. And it's very rare for you to have that kind of business acumen to provide that type of service and unique markets. So hopefully if anybody wants to call me about them, please do. I'm definitely an advocate for them.
Zach, thank you. Thank you for everybody on my team thank you for saying those nice words. Just thank you for being the client that you are. Zach, Pablo and I were running this morning and I was talking about our relationship and I'm like, I knew from the very first moment that, you and me gave each other a big hug after that session in Las Vegas. And I knew that you were somebody who just genuinely thought the best of people, right? Just a happy, positive person. And, when you meet those types of people, my life instantly got better because I can see that positive energy that you're giving off. I think people can see that here on the show today. I think we're all very blessed to be a part of this discussion. And, I am so thankful that we have clients just like you, right? People that it goes way beyond just the dollars that were the returns on investment, right? It's because we get to be a positive influence in your life and Beth's life and your family's life, because the more returns that we can create, the more passive income we can create, it is being directed from your minds to go to very positive places. And that's how we can all change the world here. So I am super appreciative of our friendship and for you being here on the show. And I'm just kind of in awe a little bit with the trust acronym. I can't wait to listen to the show again. This is pretty special.
Yeah, Zach, right when I thought that I was done, I thought I was like, all right, he delivered everything. You bust out this like perfectly well thought out trust acronym and continue to blow our minds, man. I got a little bit more from the chat here. Leo puts in, I'm glad that I found JWB in this group. I'm starting out with one property and will case Zach. As usual, awesome show. I've been learning every time I attend the show. And we got one question from Jim Kirkle. It says, Zach, how do you make that transition in your mindset to challenge the decades of investment training and execution? It's challenging your own internal North Star. I applaud your ability to jump in, and your advice is something that I need. And maybe we can wrap up with that.
Yeah, the switching from the fixed mindset to the growth mindset is something that it's no different than exercising, right? You have to practice it. You have to believe it. And for us, it's not just knowing about that mindset. It's about doing and applying it. Like I said, knowing is just half the battle. You have to apply it, and being willing to make the change is not enough. You really have to do it. You really have to do it. And sometimes you're going to fail. In fact, all of us fail. And like I said earlier, perfection isn't my goal, by the way. And it is about learning every time I fail. And we have failed a lot. I didn't talk about my failures. We have a lot of failures. All of us do. But it's the most important thing about failing and getting that mindset, the growth mindset, is that it's what you do afterwards. It's what you do after you fail is more important than actually, sometimes it's more important than succeeding right away, because in life, we're going to have some challenges and obstacles. And if we don't know how to challenge adversity and overcome them, you're not going to be successful. You always have that fixed mindset. And the growth mindset is always about, no matter what, it's always about the half full mentality, in life. And that's how we look at it. We look at how we can do that. And by the way, if something's not working, move on, change it. You have the ability to, you have choices. You have ability to change, make the change. Change management should be part of your philosophy in everything that you do, everything that you do.
Zach, can you talk to us a little bit about who you were prior to 2000 as far as an investor? And maybe, I know you mentioned you were in stocks and bonds. Could you have imagined, let's say in 1990 or 1995, that you'd be sitting here in 2020 telling this story about your investments, right? Was this something?
No way. I bought my first house, by the way. I said we bought our house together, Beth and I, when we got married, but I bought my first house when I was a junior in college. Remember, I said I had a Boeing scholarship. So part of my scholarship at the UW is I had to work for the company. So I was literally going to school and working full time. I was working a swing shift. So I had that work standard mentality already about working hard all the time. But I was staying at the fraternity, and if you ask me today what my why was at the time I bought my first property, is because I wanted to get the heck out of the fraternity. That's where it was like craziness all the time. And not that I didn't want to have fun, it was just so distracting for me. And my investment mentality at that time was about investing in my family. Taking the kids were being raised, make sure that they had all the things that they needed to have a comfortable life, making sure they have a great place to live. I mean, it was really the fixed mentality of what your normal, family would do as you grew up, and never thought about real estate as being a opportunity for future state. Never once thought about that.
A lot of us struggle with making a change, and when we see somebody who's successful on the other side and has changed their mindset, a lot of us, the first reaction is, oh, well, there was some natural inclination, or that was easier for that person back in the day. It wasn't easy for you back in the day, right?
No, not easy. We've had some, like I said, we've had some challenges. We've had some failures that we learned from, but we kept at it. I think implementing successful systems and integrating your successful mentors and people always kept us going. Right, because they all failed. Every single success, even Warren Buffett failed. Bill Gates, he failed right now. And I think if you just keep going with the mentality of striving for excellence, should never settle, and keep doing things great, I think you will continue to be successful. Have the tenacity to move forward, and then of course partnering with some great companies like JWB to help you become successful, because you're not going to be an expert at everything. I think that's a thing that everybody thinks that they can just do this on their own. And I can learn this if I just do it on my own. I see that on Bigger Pockets a lot. Like people say, oh, why would you spend that kind of money to do? It's like, wait a minute, I don't have the time to learn this by myself. They never taught this in college to me around financial investments and real estate. So I'm gonna share my wins as well as their wins to become successful in what we do every day.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know,
Amazing, man. Absolutely amazing.
hopefully I didn't take too much of your time. I know we went way over. My bad. But
I don't think anybody's upset about that in any way. I am getting some requests in the chat of how to contact you. Zach, are you in the Facebook group?
yes, I am. It's under OPA House. So OPA House. Our company's name is Official Property Advisors. Let me tell you a quick story on this. So we were down in in Florida. We were at Gulfstream, and we went to an Greek restaurant for dinner, and one of our horses was running, and he won. And we're standing on the table, breaking plates, and we're yelling, "Opa, Opa!" So now that became our mantra. Every time a horse wins, we yell "Opa," and we break plates and everything. And so OPA, our company's name is Official Property Advisors. So it's OPA House, HOUZ is our Facebook. So OPA House is our Facebook, and we have officialpropertyadvisors.com is our website. You'll see some of our investments in there, our rental properties, etc. So that's what we have. You can contact us there as well. Phone numbers there on the webpage as well.
Well, my friend, I'm glad you threw it out there so people can contact you. I have a feeling I don't know how many of these like podcasts or interviews you've done, Zach, but I think you have a really bright future in this space. Tons of just really, really good feedback from the chat. From Pop himself said that this is the best episode ever. So I think you've fulfilled your expectations. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. I mean, we still. This normally doesn't happen, but like our count has steadily risen as this episode has gone on, and it has not dropped off, which normally definitely happens right at around an hour. So we've got like 45 people here. We started with like 25. So nobody's left. This has been absolutely incredible nuggets, man. Really, really appreciate it. And I want to encourage anybody that wants that passive investment guide to go to jwbpassiveguide.com. That's our new thing that we're giving away that I think is going to shed some light into how to have success in passive investment. And join us in the Facebook group. Greg, is there a watch party tonight? Is there no watch party tonight?
No watch party tonight. We are taking a break from it tonight.
Taking a little break, but this is live in the Facebook group as of right now. It's in there. So if you want to watch it again, go to jwbfacebookgroup.com. Next week, we're going all the way to the other side of the equation. We are bringing on Aaron Compton, who is a first-time real estate investor. He works for one of the property management companies that, not one of the property managers. How do you describe Crossman, Greg?
Yeah,
so I don't speak.
So we have external partners that do a lot of our property management services. So think about our property turns, which means when a property is being turned over from a resident, we have a team that goes in and makes sure that the property basically is left in decent condition. So our team can then go in and do the scope of work. So we call these our external teammates, and we have a lot of them that help all of our investment properties work the way they do. So Aaron is a part of our external vendor list, and a lot of external vendors work to make sure, of course, that this works for you. But we haven't spoken with one of them on the show. So in addition to being a first-time investor, Aaron also knows more than anybody else, other than inside JWB's walls here, what it's really like to see JWB's investment properties when they're turned over and all that good stuff. In addition, what else is he, Pablo?
He's a missionary. He's a certified real estate inspector. He has now started his own real estate company and done his first deal with somebody inside of our community where he got the deal done. So it's a great story. And Greg, spoiler alert, he's going to want to pick your brain about where to go next from here. So this is going to be an interactive coaching session for you and Aaron as also his story and that expose. So I hope everybody joins us next week. Man, Zach, I don't know how else to thank you, dude, but I just think you're the coolest. so I really appreciate it. And Greg, I'll leave it up to you to get the last word.
And one more thing about Aaron, he does like the trifecta here of all of the ways to being related to JWB. He's actually a JWB resident as well.
Right.
So he's going to see this type of operation from every single angle. So super excited for that. But Zach, I just am super appreciative. I'm just so thankful to know you, to be able to serve you and your family. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the extra effort that you put in all along the way as far as preparing for this, to be able to deliver maximum value. It's no shock to me that we've had one of our highest attended sessions all the way throughout, to hear your story. And I hope you share it more often too. I mean, this is something that I'm going to listen to again. And I hope everybody does in the Facebook group as well. So thank you so much, Zach. Please send our best wishes to Beth and your entire family.
Yeah, I just want to say, have a safe and prosperous new year for everyone. Hope I added some nuggets for all of you investors, and haole makahiki. Have a great year.
Haole makahiki.
Thanks, everyone.
Begin to do it.